Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Straightforward Farming Podcast. I'm your host, Tony Reed, alongside Nick McCormick, as always, coming to you on a wet, muddy, rainy Thursday evening. What is today? April 7th. Or May 7th, I'm sorry.
7th, yeah.
Yep. Rain, more rain. Just won't quit.
No, it will not.
We should have known it was coming. We went from an exceptionally dry winter to the tables have now turned to a wet spring.
What little bit of ground we did work early. I told my brother, it's going to be a weird year.
Yep.
The pieces I did work were traditionally our stuff that doesn't work nice.
Yep.
And it worked beautiful. I'm like, nope, going to be messed up. And here we are.
I'm going to say locally here, and I'm just going to talk our school district. I can't branch out much farther than that because I ain't really been anywhere, but I'm going to say we're less than 1% planted, ain't we? I mean, there's virtually nothing.
Virtually nothing.
Nothing.
Yep. We got one farm done early, Wednesday before Easter or whatever.
How did that turn out?
Pretty good. Yeah, it's up, I think.
Yep. Was that beans or corn?
Beans, yeah.
Beans, yep.
It's up. And it's got a full tile system, but to prove my point on the difference between the two soil types, there's a little patch right around my brother's house. So I started there, planted that, drove up, did our north farm. North farm's up, looks good. There's not 3 beans up by the farm.
I noticed, I come by your brother's house the other day and I knew that was planted and didn't see anything.
No.
And that's been probably a month ago.
That's the difference between black dirt and timber soil.
Yep.
So, like I said, the other has a full tile system, which helps.
Sure.
But
something about that black dirt, it's just different.
Well, it gets the sun.
Yep.
Warms up better, so on and so forth. So, whatever. It'll be what it'll be. But it should work out good for me from the fact that I'll be able to go up there this fall and knock that out before anything else is ready. So, assuming it makes it to the end. But, yeah, it's looking okay so far. But, that's all we got in.
Yeah, I'm about to run out of stuff to do around here. I mean, I'm just scratching now.
I got guys tying into more weird projects on the farm than I had a guy tell me the other day, it's like, we got to get in the field. We are fixing shit that doesn't need fixed. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily true, but they're diving into stuff that normally they would just say, well, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I could see that. Absolutely. Yep. Grain markets are still shit.
Yeah.
Nothing changing there.
No.
I seen today Trump did get a deal with the UK that's had something to do with beef, poultry, and ethanol. So
that's good.
I mean, it's definitely not a negative. I mean, if anything comes of it, it's better than nothing.
Should bump it up a little bit, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know how far north of us you'd have to go to get to where they've planted hard. I mean, probably 30, 40 miles for the hard planting.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
But to my knowledge, from here, or Route 16, right where we live, all the way to Cairo, Illinois, I don't think anything's been planted.
Less than 1%. From the guys I've talked to that have been down that way, went a little bit, I've been driving around, there's nothing down there.
In fact, I think there's some guys I've talked to that ain't that far from us to the south, truthfully, that they haven't turned a wheel all year. I mean, we all work some ground and done other stuff. And Hydrus, they ain't done nothing.
Yeah, they ain't done anything. Yeah. Which they may be better off for that.
Could be.
We got all our gas on, got our fertilizer on, et cetera, et cetera. I'm ready to go. And we worked some ground, hoping to just pull in and stay all planted after a rain. But that was about 4 inches of rain ago. I don't know if that's actually going to be the case now. But
yeah, pretty good. This is Thursday. Pretty good shot of rain coming Monday and Tuesday, sounds like. So, I mean, that's going to put us to mid-May. I mean, we're going to be 20th of May minimum now.
And the other thing is it's cool, so it's not drying much. When it's 40 at night, 45, like it just, time the sun warms it up, it can't get any moisture out of it. And then we get a tenth or two here or there. It just rains pretty easy. How many of those days do we have where it seemed like every hour it'd come a tenth or whatever, a little sprinkle?
I mentioned it on TikTok that one day. Any other day of the year, you want to go outside and do something, the wind's blowing Mach 6.
Yeah.
We ain't had a stitch of wind for 2 weeks now.
Nope, doesn't blow at all when you need it. But it is what it is. I never complain about the rain. I just pray for better timing. So
yeah, exactly. It'll be what it'll be. If we get it planted, we get it planted. We always do.
Yeah.
If we don't, a year like this where corn's $4 or sub $4, I'll take prevent plant. Hell with it.
It's super wet, and we're still only 2 weeks away from a drought. So
yeah, exactly.
Could
be worse.
It'll turn around here one of these days. We'll be begging for a rain.
I did see on the local news, they said basically a week from now, we're going to get up close to 90. They said if we don't get in the 90s, we're going to have at least feel like temps in the 90s. So
yeah, I bet.
That'll help. But
yeah, we have had a few humid days when the sun was out there for a little bit, which doesn't take much to make me sweat. But
yeah.
Yeah. I'm not turning the air conditioner on just yet. But.
Yeah, we haven't done that yet. It's been nice of an evening,
Yeah, it's been gorgeous of an evening. A lot of those days where it rained all day, the sun come out, 6 o'clock or whatever, and the evenings were nice. But
yep. So no big projects in the shop, nothing mind-blowing?
No, I got a couple big tractor pulling projects in there that I would love to put together if I had the stuff to do it, but I don't. And about the time all that stuff shows up, the weather will be nice and I'll be in the field. And then my back will be against the wall and so on and so forth. And, and the pulling stuff is not COVID related, but we're still running on the ag side of stuff you can't get. Back orders are longer than they should be, et cetera, et cetera. It blows my mind that we're still not ramped up and back to doing on some of that stuff. Like
it's amazing the amount of damage that done.
Oh my gosh. Filters. Just take one small thing. Like it's not uncommon. Oh, nope. We're out nationwide. It'll be a month.
I seen a guy on Facebook yesterday and I don't remember if it's somebody that follows me or if it was just one of them random things that show up, but he was looking for an oil filter for a Cummins motor in a Dodge pickup, a 2023 or whatever it was. Like none to be found anywhere.
Yeah.
Like that's weird.
It's mind blowing on the stuff you still can't get. It's some of it's been the same item like 7 times now. Like they'll get a batch, and then they're immediately out. They'll get a batch, they're immediately out. I finally got some stuff in on yesterday. It's been on back order for a while. It's like, I really don't need them. But I forgot to cancel the back order, and it's like, man, I better keep them because they'll be out of stock again here soon. And as soon as all that stuff always comes in waves. As soon as one guy needs it, I'm going to sell 10 of them. It's just, that's crazy. That's
really something.
And getting stuff fast is just kind of a thing of a past. Back in the good old days, we'll call it, Amazon Prime is 2 days maximum. Now even there, it's just random. Well, you'll get it when you get it. Just be thankful you're going to get it at all. I don't know. It's frustrating. It makes it hard. I mean, I'm just one guy and I don't have enough bays in the shop just to keep me working.
Yeah.
I can work myself out of parts pretty quick and we stock a ton of stuff, but it's the little things here and there that'll get you.
Yeah. And that's why we got to get manufacturing back in this country.
Yes.
Which, I mean, I know you don't do that overnight. I know there's still a lot of things made in the USA, but it's just out of control.
Yeah. And can we stop with the assembled in USA thing?
Yeah.
Well, we can put a little flag on it and say assembled in USA. Well, that's better than nothing, but I want a good old boy machinist doing that stuff, not some sweatshop in nowhere, Southeast Asia, cranking it out,
Yeah.
with a tolerance of about 1/4 of an inch, on something that needs to be down to the thou.
And don't you think a lot of this stems back to the fact that welfare and disability and all that stuff is so easy to get anymore that that's the easier route? Don't need a job.
That has a lot to do with it.
Which, in my humble opinion, bled over to undocumented people coming across the border because they actually would work.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why the politicians let it go on so long, because you can just keep doubling down on your Democrat voters, right? The illegals will do it. Plus the deadbeats that don't want to work will do it.
Yeah.
So...
But you're not talking high-end stuff on that.
No.
You're talking for the most part, not to be mean, but like menial labor stuff at some level, which has to be done. I'm not saying it doesn't. And I'm not saying it's beneath me or anything like that, but I'm like...
An undocumented worker ain't doing laser eye surgery.
No, no. They're not running a CNC mill.
Yeah.
They're not programming that or, doing actual manufacturing. They may have drywalled the building that the office complex, et cetera, and there again, I'm not trying to knock them in any way, shape, or form, but traditionally your uneducated people that migrated, people that have it good in Mexico aren't leaving.
Right.
They're upper echelon, et cetera, et cetera. We're getting their lesser class that's struggling and whatever. And they can come up here and work for cash, send money back home.
And actually, nowadays, you don't hear much about it being Mexico. Now it's Honduras, El Salvador.
Yeah.
So, what changed in Mexico? Like, are they actually... Or have they already all came here and there's no more to come?
I don't know. Maybe they're out of people. People to send.
Or is it things have improved there a little bit, but it's like, you guys just pass on through. We don't need you. We got to keep our own people busy.
I don't know.
I'm not an economist. I don't follow how all that works. But
so I don't know. Hopefully it's going to swing around in the other direction here. Hopefully, But we've kind of done it to ourselves too, right? Like we totally discounted the trades. We told kids don't do that. You're better than that. What you need is a college degree and postmodern psychology. Okay, what do I do with that? No one knows, not to knock the postmodern psychologists out there, but, just pick your random topic, liberal arts and studies. You're not making anything out of that. I'd much rather have a guy that can run a lathe or a mill or a drill press or, whatever. They can make something, when push comes to shove. So,
and I can't speak for the desert Southwest or the West Coast where farming is totally different. But when you and I were little kids, nobody had Mexicans up here milking cows or working in hog barns. You just didn't.
No.
But once that all came on the scene, this guy probably wouldn't be milking 5,000 cows.
No.
If he had to rely on his wife and kids to get it done.
Absolutely not.
So it's kind of fucked all of us.
Yeah. And we're all probably guilty of a small portion of that, of the fact that there's stuff I don't like to do, and some of that I can hire done cheaper than I can do it myself, in theory. So that's a crap job. I'll hire that done. Okay, well, we've kind of, our grandparents' generation, they had all the skills, right? Name something that needs done on the farm. Going to put an addition on the house? Going to do it ourselves. Going to pour some concrete? Going to do it ourselves. Going to plow today? Going to do it ourselves. Going to do some landscaping, which back then was pretty primitive. It wasn't decorative or whatever, but we're going to do it ourselves.
Yep.
And they had a fleet of kids, and they did it themselves with essentially forced labor of their kids or whatever. But they knocked all those projects out. I can't carpenter to save my life, and I know that about myself. But there's a bunch of that stuff. It's like, we'll just we'll either do without or we'll hire somebody else to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're not wrong. It's different. I don't know. Like my grandpa wouldn't have dreamed of paying somebody to mow the yard. That would just like
pick a letter in your phone and pick the first 5 people with that letter, first name. See if any of them have changed their own oil in the last 5 years.
Yeah,
I bet most of them haven't.
You're probably right.
They just haven't, and that's fine. Whatever, because they don't have a place to dispose of it. They don't have the stuff to do it, so on and so forth. But I don't know. It is of course, now you got about disassemble the vehicle to get to the oil pan.
Yeah.
We put this no wrench oil plug on it. Well, that's great, but you got to take off a skid plate to get to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And let's face it, America's too fat to get underneath their own car.
Yeah.
So
it'll flat blow your mind. Like, y'all talk to mechanics out of John Deere, of guys who have, big fancy shops, take everything to Deere, let them do it. They don't, you're not allowed to get oil on the floor in there. Nothing.
Yep.
Crazy.
And I see both sides of that too, though. Like, it's not as simple as a 63 Ford anymore, right?
Agreed.
Where you spin a B2 filter on it, put in 5 quarts of oil, and you're good to go. Like, now there are a few other things to look at. Well, this code pops up once in a while. So while you got it in there, go ahead and scan it. Or these grease zerks are super hard to get to, and you got to have 2 90-degree fittings and then clip the grease gun on it to get it to take grease, whatever. So I get that side of it. But by the same token, our grandparents would have found a way to do that.
Sure.
They'd have pushed through on that, and,
Yeah, like a big 4-wheel drive tractor nowadays. If you were 75 years old, it's like changing the oil, and that's a little bit of a task as far as you got to climb up on the tires.
It's an all-day job to service one of them.
Yeah.
Like, time you get all that stuff done, they hold a ton of oil. You got to do something with said oil. Filters are heavy. They're expensive. You don't want to screw that up. Like, if you're going to change the differentials and the axles and all that shit, well, you need a bucket pump or, something, blah, blah, blah. Just one thing after another. And next thing you know, the tractor set a deer and they can do it, you know.
Do you think our generation, so talking about this, like a 75-year-old man changing oil on that, which it's because farming's become easy, right? Because nice tractors, auto steer, good air conditioners. Yeah. It's not a physically demanding job for the most part if you're grain farming. It can be, but generally
not
it's
like it was.
Yeah. So do you think our generation will be the first generation that at 65 are like, fuck it? Because all the boomers and all them, they all worked till they were 75, 80, 85.
Because it just kept getting easier.
Exactly. It kept getting easier and they could do it. To where our generation is, like, well, fuck it.
I don't know. It might be that way. It might be that way. Of course, then if it regresses a little bit, the next generation has to do some of those things themselves. They don't have the skill set for it.
Yeah, agreed.
Like they can't push through. And it's funny how, like, Dad never minded having my brother and I out working late when we were little kids. But then as he got older, you better don't work too late tonight. Well, I'm somewhat of a night owl. So at some point in time, I would just fib to him, I'm going to quit here in a little bit, or I would quit, and then I'd just go back. He didn't know, Yeah, I'd just leave when he left, and when he turned off, I'd turn around, go back the other way, and go back to farming. Yep. It's fine. But you think about it, when we were 12, 13, 14, you're out on a cabless tractor, no cell phone, no lights,
half the time freezing to death once the sun went down. Yeah. Carhartt
should have been popular then, but they weren't. But you're covered in 3 coats, so on and so forth. Bugs collected around the fenders, all that stuff. Now, you weren't going to farm more than about 4 hours because you're out of fuel. But, and then as you get older, don't be out there. I'm like, well, I've got this is nicer than being at home in my recliner.
Exactly.
I can
all I'm doing is pushing a button once every 20 minutes or whatever.
Like if I go home, I'm going to my buddy's house to drink beer anyway. I might as well just sit out here.
Yeah.
It's literally less work, but at some level. So it's funny how all that comes full circle on all that. But I don't know. You think about those old guys, riding a combine with no cab and so on and so forth. I'm sure they were looking to the end of the day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, a bearing went out. I'm super excited about that. That means we can stop.
Yeah.
Now can go as long as you want for the most part, So
I know I'm personally not looking to work till I'm 75 years old. I'm not saying I won't tinker around, do whatever, but I'm not looking to.
I don't mind doing all that stuff. I would like to do it at my leisure.
Yeah.
And do what I want to do whenever I want to do it, not have to do it, Now, I'm not making very good plans to be in that position, but yeah, my goal, and it won't work out this way probably for me, but my goal is, my birthday's in September, for my 65th birthday to be my last crop, where I'm officially in charge.
Yeah.
Now, it may not work out that way. I mean, it all depends on what my nephew and my son want to do, et cetera, amongst other people, so on and so forth. But that's my goal.
Yeah.
I don't know that it'll work out that way. And I'll still go out and help drive a tractor, so on and so forth. Finding tractor drivers is easy.
Yeah.
These days, for the most part. Because they are nice now, but it's the other stuff that goes along with it that's hard to get anybody to do.
Yeah.
And especially to get somebody to do it the way you want it done.
Yeah. And I look at, that's payback too, where you can throw the kids in a bind. Like during harvest, you needed help, but it's like, well, somebody's got baseball practice or basketball or whatever, so they can't be there, they got to leave. So it's like, well, no, you're in charge, motherfucker. So 6 o'clock, well, got to go run town, eat supper. So you're going to have to figure this out. Yeah. I'm not going to be there.
Going to go look for a card game. We'll catch you later.
Exactly.
Whatever it is, Yeah. Yeah. We'll see how that goes. Probably not well. I know an old guy was telling me he had hired a retired guy to help him farm. And this has been 20 years ago, probably 15 anyway. And they laying all this stuff. And the guy's like, hey, look, man. He's like, I didn't turn the lights on when I was farming. I never worked that late. He's like, I'll be damned if I'm turning it on. I'm working late for you. He's like, I'm doing this as a favor to you. And it's kind of a hobby. He's like, I'm not looking to work super late. I know your stuff's nicer than mine was. And I'm not sitting outside anymore, but I'm still not working late. He's like, I'm 70 some years old. When I want to be done, I'm just going to get my truck and go home.
Yeah. Yep.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Anything he did was a bonus, and I don't think he paid him much, and the guy didn't want much for it, but he kind of wanted to come and go as he pleased, and that's fine. And it was fall chiseling. Sure. Whatever he got done was great. They had a spare tractor. You want to chisel 20 acres? Great. You want to chisel 200? That's great. That's even better. Whatever you want to do.
Yep.
But
yeah, I'm looking to enjoy life a little bit. I'm not going to be one of these that's 75 years old and never left the county because I was too busy micromanaging everybody.
There's more to life than just work. And I like to work.
I do too.
I think that's the one thing that we miss now, and I don't know how to convey it to the next generation. I'm not just talking my kids, your kids. I'm talking as a whole. I think the pride in an honest day's work, and the feeling you get when you busted some ass today and you got something to show for it. Maybe not financially, but just physical and work that got done. Like I don't think this next generation fully. And not to rag on them all the time about that, because we do plenty more than that than we should. But I just don't think we've conveyed that to them.
Right.
I think they look and they see, Michael Jordan was the greatest basketball player during our time, and they think he just woke up one day and he was the greatest player. They don't see the hours he spent in the gym, to equate it in terms that they could understand.
Yep.
And I tried to explain that to my kid. I'm like, you've seen the videos. You know what he was doing. He just didn't show up one day and be great. And farming's no different. Like you just didn't throw some seed out. You put a bag of seed in the back of your truck, and bang, next thing you know, you've got 250 bushel of corn, and you got a great crop. Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes along with that, and it's the little things that kill you on all that, you know?
Yeah, I know, like you and I both know a couple guys that are first-gen farmers. This might be their first or second year doing it, and I think they got their eyes open. And I'm not knocking them. I'm not saying they were dumb or or I don't mean it like that, but I think it sounded easy. Then once they got into it, it's like, well, there's a little more to this than I thought, and they can handle it. I don't mean it like that.
Sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah, and it's little things like you said. You know, a planter setting here, a cultivator setting there, or something to what. You know, it's just a little stuff that you don't ever think to convey to somebody. And it's just part of learning.
Nobody told them that the drive tire on their Kinsey planter, if it was low on air, it affects their population drastically. Yeah. Like they didn't know, you know, and then next thing you know, they've got a bunch of stuff overplanted or underplanted. And they're like, oh shit, I should have checked that, you know, or, you know, one of 10,000 little things, or, you know, well, I didn't do that. Well, now I got this major breakdown that I could have solved for $20 with a little preventative maintenance that I didn't get to, you know, because I didn't know.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, but you're right. This younger generation, I don't know, it's just different, and they grow up in a different time than what we're in,
absolutely,
or what we did, and it is what it is.
You know, we bitch about how much time they're on electronics, this, that, and the other. Check your TikTok log or your Facebook log. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I'm on it more than I should be, you know. So I don't know how we really judge them for that. Oh, they shouldn't have a phone while you're going on a trip, so on and so forth. If I was right in the back seat, I'd be scrolling too. You know, the difference is I'm driving. So I don't know. I don't know how much you can. We've put them in those situations as much as they've ended up in them. You know.
And I wonder too if that's where, I don't know if street smarts is the right word. So just take, for example, when you and I would have been 8, 9 years old, so the mid to late 80s, if we were going to go to Colorado with our parents, like, we never took coloring books, none of that. We didn't have any of the little...
We looked out the window.
And we looked out the window. And I always wonder, you know, and I mean, I can remember just hours and hours driving down the road, and you would see something, and then you'd kind of get the gears turning. Well, wonder why they do this or do that, or how does this work? And then you'd ask your brother, and maybe he knew a little bit more about it than you did, and it all kind of transpired from there to where now it's just glued to the device.
Yeah, they missed the whole trip.
Yeah, absolutely.
They started scrolling in Shelby County, Illinois, and they woke up in Florida.
Yeah,
you know, like didn't see anything in between. Yeah, it is intriguing how some of that goes. Like I said, and part of it is like, not that our parents didn't have time for us, because our parents spent plenty of time with us. By the same token, you know, your dad worked, he had his own business. My dad worked, had his own business. They weren't micromanaged in any of that shit. No. So if you need a chain put back on your bike or whatever it was, you're going to figure it out, because otherwise you're just pushing it around town. Like you don't dare bother him in the middle of that stuff, you know. Nope. And after work, they're tired, so on and so forth. They're not screwing with any of that where, you know, can't remember Dad ever taking off work for a trivial activity of mine.
Right.
You know, he went to plenty of my stuff, but it darn sure wasn't during business hours. It wasn't during farming time, et cetera, et cetera. And then we didn't question him. Well, that's fine. You know, now people expect parents to be at all this stuff, so on and so forth. For what? You don't have to be at all that stuff.
Yeah.
To quote Frank Gallagher, the key to good parenting is a little bit of negligence. There's some truth in that.
That's exactly right.
You got to let them figure a little bit of that stuff out on their own, you know.
I don't go to all my kids' stuff. Don't go to anywhere near all of it. If it fits my schedule, I go, but I'm not.
I try to go to what I can, but, you know, I never begrudge my parents for not being at some of that stuff.
Absolutely.
It's fine. At some point in time, I banned my dad from coming, because that was back when VHS camcorders were popular, and I knew if he put the camera down, it'll be a long night at home.
Yeah.
He had half the game filmed, and he was pissed about it, and he was so mad he put the camera down. So we're going to watch the first half, and I'm going to take an ass chewing over it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I don't know what more you want here, bud. Like, I'm doing what I can do. But looking back now, I should have taken a bunch of that advice, but you never take advice at the time, right? Like, you just don't. So, but yeah, I think you need to let them waller in a little bit of that once in a while. You know, you got a problem, let them figure it out.
Yeah,
you know?
I think that's why Henry's got so good at what he does as far as four-wheelers and that stuff.
Absolutely.
I mean, hell, I don't know about that stuff that he's tearing into when it comes to, I've never done that.
Yeah, he dives right in,
I mean, he will literally tear one all the way down to the transmission and put it back together. And
and it's fine.
Yeah.
You're not talking about $1 million project. No. So if he does wreck it, maybe.
It was his money to start with. I mean, it's his four-wheeler.
It's his four-wheeler. So if he wants to do it that way, that's great. And like I said, he's pretty diligent about it and does, watches the video on it, so on and so forth, dives into it, asks for some advice here and there. I bet he's the only kid in his class that can do that.
I'll give that kid one thing. He will tackle anything.
He'll tie into anything.
I don't care what it is.
To the point, I'm like, well, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, once again, I can hire Henry to do it. I can hire it done cheaper. I know Henry will do it. I'll tie him into it. I wouldn't work on that, but he's going to dive in. Yep.
Oh, I guarantee you, if the transmission went out in his white truck tomorrow, he'd have a YouTube video pulled up, and he'd have the transmission down that, and he would probably rebuild it. But
you'll have transmission all over your all over your floor. He'll have her done.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So from that aspect, I don't mind. I mean, it's I'm glad that he's got the opportunity to do that here. I never had a shop like that I could just kind of have free reign over. I mean, if he starts getting piles, branching way out where I can't get stuff in, it's like, you have to condense this a little bit. But as far as that, I mean,
But even simple stuff like changing a tire or whatever, like, that's neat. Oh, I'll just hire it done. Well, not along the road.
Yeah.
If you're in nowhere, Kansas. No offense to the Kansas people, but if you're in nowhere, Kansas, you got a flat tire, you might want to know how to change that yourself. Mm-hmm. You could be in rural Illinois, 2 miles from your house here. It's 10 o'clock at night. You're coming home from your buddy's house. I don't want to call Dad. I guess I better figure out how to change it myself. We're running out of people that can figure out how to do that.
Absolutely.
It's not that hard, but if you've never done it, it's pretty difficult, Drive to high school tomorrow. Ask them how many kids out there have checked oil in their vehicle in the last 2 months.
Oh, I guarantee you.
I bet it's less than 3.
Yeah. I watched Henry check his yesterday morning or the morning before.
Watched him do it. The only person I know that's done it's Henry. Yeah. Outside of that, I was spotting 2 more people that I don't think have probably done it, but I was willing to give a buffer zone.
Yeah.
But, yeah. But there again, you end up, this newer stuff doesn't use oil typically.
Yep.
So you kind of get accustomed to not having to. It's got a warning light for it. It'll shut itself off, all the stuff, yada, yada, yada. Little known fact, Henry has a Tesla. It doesn't even have oil.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But so you get to where you don't, when we were kids growing up at tractor, you were check the oil and everything.
Oh, yeah.
But now, hop on, it's probably fine.
Yep. Yeah, it wasn't uncommon back then for an older Soundguard deer or an older IH. If you pulled the nuts off of it for one day, I mean, be a gallon low. I mean, it wasn't.
Well, an IH can be low in Hytran.
Yeah.
There's a leak somewhere. Your implement had a leak, whatever. You're going to put some Hytran in it. Back then, Hytran was cheap. It cost a lot of money to fix the leak. Now Hytran costs so much, you're looking into fixing them now. But back then, it's like, it's fine.
Yep.
A buddy of mine always told me, buy a 1086, you got to buy a sheep. I'm like, what do you have to have a sheep for? He's like, to rub around on it and keep the oil off. Yeah. So that's how I keep mine clean. I always park it in the pasture, let the sheep rub on it. Okay.
Yep. The old 86 series.
But, I mean, things have gotten different on all that and, whatever. Like I said, there's just, and that's part of the reason that they're, again, I've said I'm not bagging on this generation, but they can't run some of that older stuff because there are quirks to all that.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like hopping in a 2022 Denali. Well, I guess at this point they blow up pretty regular too. But a normal vehicle, like you can just drive. You just go and it's fine. Now, you get an older vehicle. Well, when you hit the brakes, it kind of pulls to the left, so you got to steer to the right. And the turn signal doesn't shut off on its own. You got to click it, back up. It's wore out, but that's just an old farm truck. We're just going to keep driving it,
You know how a 66 Series IH tractor is. Like if you go to put it in gear, say you're going to go into high first, you grab the high-low lever and it wants to grind. You don't just keep reefing on it till it goes in. You back it off a little bit. And
grind it into low, slam it into high. Yeah. Low's there to slow it down for high.
Exactly.
And they're always wore out. Nobody ever fixes any of that shit. And you go too fast, now you've got it in 2 gears.
Yep.
And you got to know how to get it out of that, It amazes me. Some of the guys say, hey, my tractor's stuck in 2 gears. Yeah, so flick it out. Well, I don't know how to do that.
Take a screwdriver and reach for your
really? You don't know how to do that? Okay. I mean, yeah. Or why don't you bring it in and we'll fix all that stuff so it doesn't do that. Oh, no, it was just an old chore trap. We don't need that fixed. Okay.
That was the bad part because by the time you and I got to all that shit, it was wore out.
It was wore out, yeah.
So we had to figure out the quirks. The guys before us, it was new enough. It was fine.
And I always get the same lecture from my dad. I could drive this thing 10,000 hours and never have that problem, which he could. Like, you knew the quirks of it. You can move it around to where it needs to be and get it in and go,
I have always had a knack for any vehicle. I don't care if it's a car, a truck, a tractor, whatever it is. Once I've been in that thing for an hour after that, I can tell you the least little vibration, feel, noise, any of that. Yeah. I mean, and I don't care if it's your tractor and I've just been running it. I can tell you when something changes on that vehicle.
That always amazes me on guys. I'm like, didn't you notice this? Well, no. You go out to pick it up and the radio's cranked. I'm like, that's why you didn't notice
Exactly.
it. But
I never, ever listened to the radio farming, ever.
Not anymore. I always maintain when it kicks the code, it ought to kill the air conditioner.
Yeah.
Because then they would stop.
You're right. Know? Or the auto steer.
Or the auto steer, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It always baffles me on the stuff that people, like I said, a little vibration and noise. Like every time I get in my wife's car, I'm like, when did it start doing that? She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, you can't feel that? No, hadn't noticed it. I'm like, well, it wasn't there last time I drove it.
Yeah.
I guess I'll look at it,
Yep. That's what I asked my wife on her van about the shocks the other day. I mean, it sounds like they're coming clear through the roof of the van. I'm like, you don't hear that? Oh, no, I don't. I mean, it's always sounded that way. I'm like, no, it hasn't.
No, it hasn't. Yeah. Yeah. And I suppose, coming from a more mechanical background, like I'm more in tune to some of that, I suppose. But yeah, some people, there's a feel for a bunch of that and not everybody has that. And it's getting to be less and less.
It is.
And that's something you can't necessarily explain. You can lay out consequences. Look for this, look for that. The consequence is you're going to get your ass chewed. So when we were younger, so you're looking for all that stuff all the time. For years, we never had a tractor that was usable. Like Dad would buy one. We would use it when it needed a torque, clutch, all the shit. We would fix all that and he'd get rid of it. I'm like, we just got it going. He's like, yeah, it's fine. I got another one over here. I'm like, yeah, but none of that shit works on it either.
Exactly.
No, it's fine. You'll get by with it, which is true. You can't idle it up because you lose all your brakes and your steering because the torque's out of it. It's like, okay, don't run it into anything. Well, how about we keep the one that all that shit worked on? No, it's worth good money. Okay. If I did that to my kids, my wife would go DEFCON 5.
Yeah.
Nothing against her. I understand why, but.
And the bad part is like this new stuff, you can't feather an 8R series deer into gear. Like there's no little bit of a grind, then you can go here and then go. I mean, it's in or out.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Well, we always say, manual pickup trucks or whatever are unstealable these days because nobody knows how to drive them. How many more years before there's a lot full of 40-20s? Yeah. Everybody's just like, I can't drive it.
Yep. Like, and I want to go as far as to make the argument. Everybody says, like, if I put my old 78 on TikTok, everybody will say, every kid needs to learn how to drive a 5-speed. And I'm like, well, what's the point now? There's none out there.
Yeah, you can't hardly even buy one.
So why does it even do the kids any good to know how to drive one?
Most semis are automatic now.
Yeah, that'd have been like when we were teenagers saying, well, everybody needs to learn how to drive a 3 on the tree. Well, there wasn't none around. I mean,
we had one buddy that had one.
Yeah, we did.
And our mechanic had one. He had a Nova. That's how I learned how to drive 3 on the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if it does our kids' generation any good to know to drive a 5-speed or not. I'm not.
Well, all these classic cars or whatever, like, who's going to drive them the next generation? They can't drive a 4-speed or 3 on the tree or whatever it is.
Yeah, and they don't care about them either.
They don't care about it either, yeah. Only way that stuff gets randomly popular is if it's in a movie.
Yeah.
Then they're like, well, I wouldn't mind having Eleanor because it was Gone in 60 Seconds. But that movie's 20 years old now. They've heard about the Dukes of Hazzard. They've never seen the movie or the show.
Yeah, we've talked about this in the past on here. There's going to be a peak on these older tractors and trucks and all that where we're going to hit it and it's going to go the other way because nobody else wants it. Yeah. I mean, we want it because we grew up on it, but our kids, they don't give a shit about
it. You take a 300EX 4-wheeler. Those kids can't ride that. It's got a manual clutch.
Yeah.
Can't pull it off with this equipment. They're used to just putting it in drive and going, So, yeah, times they do change, I suppose.
Yeah. M's and H's, tractors, A's, B's, John Deere's, all that, 15 years ago, that was a hot item. I mean, there were still only 3,000 or 4, whatever it was. But now you can't hardly give one away again because the baby boomers are dying. Well, I don't want one.
I wouldn't mind having one just for nostalgic sake, but I don't need it. And I'm not willing to, at this point, spend any money on one.
Yeah. In fact, didn't you tell me you knew of a guy that was buying fully restored A's and B's and just parting them out?
He was buying fully restored 2-lunger John Deere's and parting them out because all the parts were nice. They were painted up, ready to ship. He was like, I don't buy junk ones. He's like, I buy nice ones. He's like, I give top dollar for nice ones. It's worth way more in pieces so the next guy can fix his up. He's like, I sell them off by the piece.
Yeah. Ain't that something?
Yeah. And I suppose that helps the next guy fix grandpa's old tractor up. But by the same token, the one he dismantled was somebody's grandpa's, and they fixed it up, but it got passed on to the next guy. He's like, well, I don't give two shits about this. And we want, like, I look around at all the stuff that means something to me and to my brother. 80% of that shit don't mean nothing to our kids.
No, it don't.
You know? And part of that's on us because it's so precious or so seldomly used that they don't spend any time on it. They're not, it's not there. They'll be more partial to my old beat up farm truck that they spent 1,000 hours in over a fairly nice old tractor that they've maybe sat on the fender of once.
Yeah.
If that.
Let them run it. Just let them drive it. If they tear it up, they tear it up. Who gives a shit?
I need to buy an old 18-foot disc and be like, here, you guys are going to work. You're going to spend your week out here with this.
Yeah. If you get the green light from your boy and your nephew that says, okay, we're picking a direction. We do want to farm. Okay, well, you boys are starting at the bottom.
Yeah,
so
here you go.
Here we go.
Here you go. Enjoy this.
And once you get through this, if you still want to farm, we'll move to the next level.
Yeah. Everybody wants to run the grain cart tractor when you're in a super nice cab and a camera and
an auto steer.
You're not trying to keep a 300 bushel wagon underneath the auger of a 715 with an M in the mud. You know, with your dad just screaming, and you can hear him because the cab's not super quiet. And it doesn't have a hydro, you know, so you got to be just the right speed.
Yep.
And in my mind, those ruts were 6 foot deep. I mean, they were probably 12 inches at most.
Yeah.
But, you know, I can still remember that was wet right next to where my brother lives now. We had a tractor hooked to every wagon because you couldn't pull two, and it was muddier than shit, and had to keep the weight off the combine. And so we'd drag them up there, and then Grandpa or Mom or somebody was hauling them to town because I was a little bitty shit. So my brother and I were trying to steer at the auger, and oh, my goodness.
Yep.
You know, those things would cough and die, and, you know, getting a little bit of mud, you have to give it a little more. Well, then you're going too fast. You got to back off. Now you're back in deeper mud. Got to give it some more. What a nightmare.
It was a battle.
Yeah. You weren't going to swing the auger back and forth from the cab of the combine.
No.
You know, it was just out, and it's whopping 3 foot away from the edge of the combine. So, yeah. The whole time you're just getting screamed at by everybody.
Yeah, that's
your grandpa's pissed because you parked the wagon wrong that he's getting ready to hook up to. Your dad's pissed because you didn't have it next to where he needed to be when you were dumping.
Yep.
Yeah. My brother's pissed because whatever I was doing was wrong too, and it's like, But we got it done.
Yeah, my childhood, as far as working, I'm not saying just everyday stuff, but as far as working, entailed screaming from the time you started to the time you quit from somebody.
Like I always tell my wife and kids, I'm like, you've never heard me yell. If I yell, you'll know it. You haven't begun to see me have a high speed come apart. I've been close a few times, but nothing to what I grew up with. You know.
Yeah, Dad was that way.
How that productive that was. I'm like, in retrospect, it was pretty productive.
Yeah.
Like, you know why I didn't do drugs as a kid? Because I knew my dad would beat the shit out of me for it. You know.
Yeah. My dad was that way, and in fact, my grandpa that I helped farm was probably worse. I mean, just freak out over the littlest shit. I mean, just set that guy off and scream.
You know, but looking back, like I do appreciate the fact, like Dad didn't. It wasn't the little things that got him. It was the major things where he told you 1,000 times how to do it, and you're still just kind of lollygagging, looking around. Oh, we'll just do it this way. No, by God, he wanted it done that way for a reason, and there was a method to his madness. There's a reason he wanted it done that way, but he didn't tell you what that reason was.
Right.
So in your mind, it's like, well, this doesn't need to be done that way. Like there's 1,000 ways I can do this. Well, it turns out. It needed to be done that way, but he didn't give you all the other information, you know. What we have here is a failure to communicate.
Right.
Yeah. If he'd have told me why it needed to be done that way so we can get to this end result, I probably still would have screwed it up.
Yeah.
But at least then I would have had something to look back on and be like, well, that's why he wants it done that way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, I probably can't say the same with my wife and kids. I've had some come apart. And actually, never towards my wife ever, but the kids, yeah. I've had to get my point across.
Yeah, like I said, when they think I'm yelling, they haven't begun to see that yet. I mean, I have yelled a few times. They would tell you a lot, but it's not really that much. But it's nothing compared to what I'm capable of.
Yep.
I just afraid if I get that over the top, Tony, I'm not sure the old ticker will take it.
Yeah, exactly.
Hate to put myself into cardiac arrest over them not doing what they're told.
Yep.
I always try to mix a little humor into it, though.
Yeah.
I don't think they fully appreciate the time. I know my son low-key laughs about it later, and my daughter too, as far as that goes, because they brought it back up later on. Like they appreciate the humor on the backside, but yeah.
And truthfully, though, I actually had to scream or yell at any of my kids for, oh, shoot, it's been a few years now. I mean, they pretty much know what's expected.
Since your big come to Jesus.
Yeah, that night at the kitchen table, yeah, the whole family was crying that night, even the wife, which the wife was only crying because I was standing up for her, and she felt bad for the kids. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for any of you young people out there starting a family, I'll tell you this. If you set the whole family down at the kitchen table and just start in and say, you know what? I'm only going to put as much effort into you fuckers as what you're putting into this house around here, which is none. So fuck all you guys. You're on your own. I ain't fucking cooking. I ain't cleaning. What is me and your mom's is ours. Fuck you guys. Make your own money. I don't care. You'll get your point across real quick. And things will change.
It does help. Yes, it does help. Yeah. Oh, good times.
Yep. I guarantee you they all still remember it. We need to have the kids on a podcast one of these nights and just see.
Yeah, see how much they remember. More than you give them credit for, probably.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit of that's good for them.
Yeah. And I will admit, too, the way things have changed over the years, like my dad could flip a switch as far as when he was in work mode or in play mode, like with two totally different people, you know?
Yeah.
And of course, back then, you know, money was tight. I mean, we never took big vacations.
Yeah.
Like every summer we would take a vacation, but it was, you know, within probably a 6-hour drive at the very most one way. And, you know, whether it's an amusement park or whatever. And then that's fine. I'm not complaining. But like, you know, I've got to take my kids to Hawaii, to Florida. I mean, my kids have been all over the U.S. Just by sheer dumb luck. Yeah. But they've got to see a lot of cool stuff that I would have never got to see at that age.
Yeah.
So
the thing about it's funny how different people are geared. Like my wife gets mad. You know, that's a process and it's for a span of time, et cetera, et cetera. I can be super mad, but I can flip it right back the other way. And I'm done. I'm over with. I vented. I made my point.
Yep.
Moving on. But not everybody works that way. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. That's just the way I am.
Yeah, I'm not going to be pissed the rest of the day because somebody didn't put a wrench back in the right spot or whatever. It is what it is. And that's it. And we ain't the only ones. I mean, I've seen different people on TikTok. I mean, their dad or grandpa screaming and yelling. And you always think it's only you, but it's not. It's everybody.
No, it's not. Yeah. Like I said, once in a while, you got to have those.
Yeah, you do. It's just part of growing up.
Yeah, no doubt.
So do you think like flying off the handle is hereditary? Like,
well, probably a little bit.
In my family, I think it is, but I don't know if old Bob will be that way or not. I mean, he's
pretty even keel.
He's pretty even keel. I mean,
I mean, that's not really his thing.
No, it's not.
No. I've never really seen my kids go off the rails. Maybe they got enough of their mom into them to not do that. But
yeah, and I've never seen him like really super pissed either. I guess I don't know.
No, he's usually pretty calm for the most part.
He kind of takes things in stride, which is good.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying you have to fly off the handle.
No.
Sometimes it's the quickest way to get the result you're looking for.
It is, and that does change too, though, as you have kids and. You know, now you're the man in charge and you want it done this way and they don't do it this way.
Well,
you know,
we're also somewhat raised by two military generations, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how the military does it.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
or did, you know, just quick instruction, maybe a little bit excitedly and moving on.
And like my grandpa wasn't one of them necessarily, like he would chew your ass farming, but more often than not, it was because something here broke, and it was just a general fly off the handle, not necessarily directed at you. It was
just angry in general because stuff wasn't going the right way. Yeah.
Yep. And it's funny with him being in World War II and he was in the Pacific, and this does not, how's them disclaimers? This is not my opinion or, you know, does not represent me in any way, shape, or form. But with him, everything, it didn't matter. It could be stamped made in America, but if it broke, it was a Japanese piece of shit, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
You know? Which,
I never met a guy that served in the Pacific that thought much of the Japanese.
Yep, exactly. That was his go-to. If it was junk, it was Japanese made.
None of those guys bought Kubotas.
No, absolutely not.
No, absolutely not.
Nope.
They were not happy.
And I don't blame him. I mean, they seen some pretty wild shit. You know, it was kind of brutal. So.
Yeah, not a pleasant place to be.
Nope.
Yeah. But, not saying the Western Front was great, but they had more in common with the Germans than they did with the Japs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that was his go-to for sure.
Yeah, like I say, if you saw the things they saw, you'd have probably complained about it too.
Yep. Yeah, he could get wound for sound.
Yeah. Oh, good times. Miss those old guys, though.
Yeah. Yeah, now we're kind of getting the baby boomer generation. Now they're the next in line. I mean,
yeah,
15 years, they'll be gone.
Yeah.
After that, it's us. That's the scary part.
Yeah, that is the scary part. Like, I think back to what, we talk about stories of, our parents doing whatever. I'm like, we're older than them.
Yeah.
When the stories we're thinking of, we're older than they were then. And it's like,
I remember when we had a 40th birthday party for my dad. He was an old man.
Yeah.
I'll be 45 this year.
Yeah.
And I do think I get around better at 45 than my dad got around at 45. And my dad gets around good today. I mean, there's he's not all crippled up or nothing, but.
I remember my dad turned 40 and my uncle turned 50. And it was over the hill cakes and just black and oh my gosh, these guys are old and so on and so forth. And I think
you don't hear that at all anymore. Over the hill, you don't hear that.
We started talking about he's got our pulling tractor stuff, this, that, and the other, and it's like, oh, I want to do that for my kids. Oh, I should have did that 5 years ago.
Yeah,
because I'm already past when we started doing all that. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just old now.
Yeah,
just old.
Yep. I tell you, life does go fast. Gosh, when you're young, it seems like it drags on forever. But man, when you hit about 30, man, it goes fast.
The torque goes forward and you're in overdrive. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. But I do think, things have changed a lot more. We're having more fun at 45 than our parents did.
Oh, I agree.
And
it's funny, like when we talk to whether it's Ryan, Peter, or anybody, and I'm not joking, there's at least 1 to 2, maybe 3 weekends a month. You and I are up till 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning drinking, and we're not smashed. We're not.
Yeah, we're just hanging out. We're just shooting the breeze,
drinking a few beers, and it'll be you look at your watch. It's 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning.
What is the time warp here?
Yeah,
the time goes faster nowhere else in the world than it does here. But yeah, I mean,
and they're just appalled. They're like, "Oh my God!"
I mean, I really haven't missed going out on a weekend since I was 16, at least one night, unless I was deathly sick or out of town. Like I'm going over here, you're going to my house, we're doing something.
Yeah.
Wherever it is, whoever's house we're going to, like we're doing something one night, at least a weekend. And I've been doing that for years, which is going to catch up with me. It's catching up with me now, which is why I'm,
But I'm like you, go as hard as you can while you can.
Absolutely. Yeah. Screw it. Nobody's ever looked back and said, boy, I wish I had that much fun that weekend.
Should have never went out that weekend.
Yeah. I should have went to bed early and maybe read a book and called it a day.
And do you think these kids have too much technology? So last weekend, the boy come home from work on Friday night. He don't get off till 10 o'clock at night, so he's home by 10:30. Come home, went to bed. That was it. Saturday night, I don't think he left the house. I mean, they just don't run like we did. Is it due to technology because they can lay in their bed and know what you're doing or not, or what?
Snapchat each other and talk about what the things they could have done had they went out. Yeah, we've talked about that before, just you and me, not really on the podcast, but they act like high school is this huge, big, difficult deal to navigate at some level. And I'm like, well, you start planning the party for Friday on Monday, and you've got it pretty much lined out on where you're going to be Friday night because you didn't have any way to communicate outside of a CB, which means you pretty much got to be next to the guy.
Yeah.
So you've got that planned out by Thursday for sure. Friday, you're just who's bringing what and where we're going to, we're finalizing the last few details of the party, and then you show up Friday, Saturday, both, whatever. And maybe it was a little different then. We probably always rolled with a little bit older crowd.
You and I did, for sure.
For the most part. So, but we had no communication with them.
Yeah,
through the
exactly.
week.
Yeah.
Like we didn't make it.
They were out of school.
Yeah.
So
we didn't have any cell phones. We couldn't talk to them outside of running into the gas station, which back then, the gas station literally had gas and that was it.
Yeah.
You weren't getting a candy bar there unless you won one from, out of an MRE ration from World War II.
Yeah.
So you were just getting gas. And that was it. If you didn't run into them there, you just knew that you heard that they were going to have a party and you were going to go there. These guys can't pull it off. It is interesting to see how all that goes.
Ain't it funny, though, back then how word traveled? It still got around to everybody that needed to get to with very, very little means of communication.
Well, and the other thing is, I've talked about this before too privately, but like, it's so cliquey now. Well, I can't go to that party. Tony's going to be there. We didn't care who was going to be there. Back in the day, like, everybody's going to be there.
And I'm still that way to this day.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone we like, someone we don't like. If I don't like you, just won't talk to you.
Yeah.
Like, if
I go to a local bar and I don't like this guy and he's standing over here, that don't mean, well, we're leaving.
We got to get out of the city limits. Like, we'll just talk to the other 45 people here we do like. Yeah. Like, it's not that big a deal.
Exactly.
We'll just roll on. But so I often wonder, like, and this is going to come off wrong, but like, were we at the top of the pile and so we didn't notice? Or did we just not care? Or was it? I don't think it was that big a deal. I don't think either one of those is true. I just don't think it was that big a deal back then.
I don't think it was either. You just didn't. So to be honest with you, like when we grew up, like if you smoked pot, like that was almost like the cardinal sin. It's like, man, this guy's shady.
Those guys never come to our parties.
No, absolutely
I was never around pot.
I've never tried a drug.
Me either.
In my life. Ever.
In my life.
I've never even tried pot.
That was never around when we were in school.
But if we happened to be at so-and-so's party who was maybe middle of the road, like he wasn't into drugs, but like just kind of one of them guys that everybody liked. Yeah. And so we were there, and then maybe some of these guys who you knew smoked pot a lot showed up. Like it didn't just crash the whole party. No. Well, everybody's leaving and going home because this group don't like this. I mean,
if they were going to do it, they were going to wander a long way off to where you couldn't smell it.
For sure.
Never smelled marijuana in my entire high school career.
No, never.
Never. Smelled it maybe once or twice in college, and somebody had to tell me what it was.
Yep.
I wasn't close enough to see them do it. Just you're out now. I see it, or I smell it all the time. Doesn't matter where you go.
Yeah,
go to a Walmart parking lot. You're like you're gonna.
Yeah, and I don't care.
I was coming home from lunch, and buddy and I, Brock and I, were coming home. We're like, what is going? The car in front of us was chiefing it up.
Really?
Yeah, so bad that we could smell it in his truck a quarter of a mile behind him.
No kidding.
We caught him, and then finally it's like, oh, okay, that's what's going on. It's like, did we hit a skunk? No, we didn't hit a skunk. No, there it is.
I'll be dang.
But that never happened in school. And like I said, if the guys would have showed up, we wouldn't have left the party. They wouldn't have left the party. They just went.
No, and there wasn't no fights breaking out or nothing. It just whatever you do, you.
But back then, the guys that did that type of stuff kept it on the pretty down low.
Yeah, they weren't open,
and they tried to hide it pretty hard.
Yeah,
they generally didn't come to the parties we were at.
Like you knew that they done it, but like they weren't just.
You heard rumors, but you never seen them do it.
Exactly.
And they tried to stay pretty far away from it because back then. The majority of us didn't, and they knew it wasn't cool with us, so they tried to hide it.
Yeah.
Hats off to them.
Yeah, and I still go back to the fact that I made a TikTok way back long ago about it. I do feel sorry for these kids as far as they have a camera up their ass.
Yes, they do.
Everywhere they go, from the hallways of school to where everybody has to be fucking Abraham Zapruder and film every fucking thing they're doing. It's like, calm down. I'll still hear to this day, well, so-and-so was drinking at a party. It's like, yeah, because numbnuts couldn't leave his phone in his fucking pocket.
Yeah.
And had to film it. So stop. You kids have to stop. Quit telling on yourself.
Quit telling on yourself. Quit filming everything.
Yeah.
Enjoy it for the moment. I took my daughter and my son to a concert here a while back. We were three of the only people there, and my kids probably did a little bit, but not much. I was one of the only people there that didn't film the entire concert.
Yeah.
Because I'm there for the moment.
Exactly.
I've got a good memory. I'll remember it. I don't need video proof that I was there. I didn't have to put it on Facebook. I just enjoyed it for what it was.
There's two things on Snapchat that I scroll through immediately. Concerts and fireworks.
Yes.
If I wanted to see fucking either, I would have bought tickets and went to either.
Absolutely.
I don't care to see it on the fucking phone. So stop.
It doesn't know justice.
No.
So I've seen Kid Rock in concert a couple of times. And both times, he's like, okay, for this song, we're going to pretend it's the 90s or 80s. Put your phones in your pockets. Don't film any of it. Just sing along with the song and just enjoy it for what it is. But he has to ask politely for people to do that. And it's probably 70 to 80% of the people will abide by that for that one song. Mm-hmm. But it just tears them up to do it. You can just see like they're just in their pocket, like they really want to get their phone out. But he's like, just put it away, because now everybody holds their flashlight up on their phone. It used to be lighters. Yeah. Now it's flashlights. It's like, why don't you guys just enjoy the music for what the music is and for the moment and for the experience and go on.
Yep.
Like, you're never going to go back and watch that video, and it's never going to be as magical as it was in person.
Yeah.
And you missed it in person because you're too busy filming it.
Yep.
You know?
I'm not saying kids should run wild at school. I'm not. But, I mean, they can't do anything without a letter getting sent home. And I throw them in the trash, which we've only had one, maybe two from Henry. And it's like, I don't care. That's not my job. You know, once they're in your hands, that's yours. You deal with it. Yeah. You don't have to get me involved in it. I don't care if that means expelling them. I don't care what the situation is. Leave me out of it. You deal with it.
It doesn't matter where they go. There's traffic cameras. There's cameras on every business. There's this, there's that. Like, the amount of stupid shit that we saw that we can't even remember because it wasn't that big a deal. If it was on film, it'd be TikTok famous or whatever. Like, it was funny in the moment if we even noticed it.
Yeah.
But
could you imagine the response that my dad or your dad would have gave the principal in 1987 if the principal would have called and said, you know, I caught your son running down the hallway?
Yeah.
Could you imagine how that conversation would have went?
Yeah. How many girls do you think got put on the water fountain this week at school?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with 0.
Exactly.
That was a daily occurrence.
A daily occurrence.
Nobody's feelings really got hurt. That usually meant you liked them. Mm-hmm. Or a group, you know, it took 2 or 3 people to pull that off.
It's innocent fun.
And it was innocent fun. It was funny. Like, they knew that they were beloved.
Yes.
And everybody knew they didn't pee their pants, and it was just funny, you know? Yeah. We're still great friends with the person I used to do it to on a weekly basis. Like, yeah, probably be out here yet this weekend. Like,
what was that?
It caused me hard feelings.
Year ago that Bob zip-tied somebody's locker shut, and it was like crisis lockdown mode at the high school.
Oh, my gosh. Yes.
Zip ties.
Yeah.
Zip ties.
Yes. My niece like, could you believe? And like, I mean, like that made him the Jean-Claude Van Damme of the school.
That wouldn't even have
tied a locker shut.
That wouldn't even have made any kind of news when we were.
So my immediate question was, so did you just click the latch and break the zip tie? Well, no. They went and talked to the principal or this, and I'm like, well, for one, in my day, somebody pulled a pocket knife out and just cut it off if they just didn't click the trigger and break it anyway, because that's all it would have taken. It wasn't it's not like it was an industrial strength.
Yeah, it wasn't these police cuffs.
Yeah. No, like it was literally a small zip tie. You just click, bang it, breaks, move on.
Calm down.
Yeah. It's probably rotten from the sun anyway. Like, it's not a big deal. Oh, but that was a big deal. That made him an American badass just for the zip tie. Who knew? Who knew that's all it took?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do feel sorry from that aspect I mean, they can't do nothing without somebody up their ass, a teacher, a camera, a whatever.
Yeah. Somebody's always mad about something.
Yep. And I'm not saying let them run wild, but
everybody's an email warrior.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Life's really not that difficult in that regard.
And I do kind of see how some of them hate high school now. I loved it when I was there.
Oh, I had a great time.
I hated grade school, loved high school.
Yeah.
But now I can see why they don't want to be there. It's like, I can't do nothing.
Yeah. I mean, can't have any fun. Fun's pretty much illegal in this country anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah. People talk about old school tractor pulling and this, that, and the other. I'm like, well, it used to be you saw how much fun you could have with how much little money you could spend. Now it's how much money can you spend and how little fun can you have. Fun is basically outlawed in all motorsports. It's outlawed in life in general.
It is.
Which is sad.
I mean, think about it. Whether it's TikTok, Facebook, whatever, you got to word stuff very carefully, even if you're talking about a Second Amendment item.
Yeah.
Because it immediately gets taken down.
I'll give you an example. You could have a blowout party here this weekend. And we might. Who knows? The weekend's young. And in our day, you'd be like, man, can you believe I missed Tony's party? God dang, it sounded like it was a great time. I can't believe I was out of town, blah, blah, blah. Now it'd be like, can you believe that at Tony's party, they did X, Y, Z?
Yeah.
Yeah, you mean they had fun? Yeah, they got their four-wheelers out.
Yeah, somebody burnt the tires clear off their truck.
Yeah, they pulled that in front of Tony's house, and they lit their tires up, and their exhaust was loud, and somebody didn't get a good night's sleep. Well, zippity freaking doo-dah. You know, that was a nightly occurrence. Christ, I lived on Main Street. you weren't getting to sleep before midnight because somebody was cackling pipes all day long.
I had a cousin who put new tires on his car every other weekend for 6 months straight when he was young.
That's true.
That's a
he
fact.
Did. That's a fact. And
Every other weekend.
Every other weekend. I watched him burn most of those off. And I laughed every time.
Exactly.
Yeah. And knowing he did it in a Chevrolet now, I don't know how he pulled it off with that equipment, but he did it religiously.
Yep.
Religiously for 6 months. Yeah. Tire customer of the year.
Right.
For the local shop.
And, the funny part is so, our parents, they could get away with more than we could, whether it was at school or weekends or whatever. And then we clearly get away with more than our kids could. But I do think we were closer to our parents as far as we could do similar things, where now it's just went to a whole new echelon. It's like, these kids can't do anything. That's two things that have worked in school is beating fear and submission into these kids and the DARE program. And I'm not advocating for drugs and alcohol. I'm not. But I don't think you could go to school today and give 3 kids a beer. Oh my God, he's got a beer. They would treat that like we would treat cocaine in the 1980s. They're like, oh my God.
Yeah. No, you're probably right there. Yeah. Like my dad always told me back in school, well, if there's something dumb you're thinking about doing, just ask me. I'll tell you how it goes. I've either done it or I know somebody that's done it, and I can just tell you how it's going to result. Okay. Well, that's not that much fun. But I think back to stories I think my grandpa and his friends, they set 55-gallon drums up on the highway and covered them in black crepe paper so we couldn't see them, like cars running into them.
Yeah.
Can you imagine doing that today?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know that's a for sure story. I heard that somewhere in through there. It wasn't directly from Grandpa, but I'm pretty sure that's how it went. And whoever hit them, they had some oil barrels on the road.
Yep.
Damn the luck.
Yeah.
And I got a free oil barrel. I threw one in the back of the truck and drove on. Yeah.
Nowadays, somebody paints a water tower 15 miles away, and the people in this town are just completely raising. You got overspray on my car. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Start the lawsuits.
Crisis lockdown. Yeah. 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 It is funny. Yeah. How all that goes. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel bad for these kids. It's easy to complain about it on one side, but on the other side, you almost can't blame it for the way that it is because of what they're dealt with.
Well, and we've kind of let it happen too. Our generation is the generation of we just want to be left alone.
Yep.
And we didn't really speak up because the boomers really wouldn't get out of the way. And we're like, what the hell with it? We're just going to sit in our little corner and have fun and go on. And now you're seeing the boomers kind of stand up, or not the boomers, our generation be like, if you notice, Trump's cabinet was pretty much all our generation.
Yeah.
For the most part. We're finally like, we've had enough. Let's correct this ship. Let's right this ship and turn it back the other way, which is impossible to do 100%, but we can do what we can do,
Yeah.
Hopefully it moves back the other direction a little bit. We're kind of over the woke stuff and the...
Yeah, our generation's never had a chance to be in control. Literally.
Yeah.
Of anything, whether it's the government or you name it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We'll be 77 years old before there's a president from our generation.
That ain't no shit. Or a congressman.
Yeah. Yeah. Near as I can tell, the age minimum for Congress must be around 75.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You got to be old as shit, senile, and dumb to begin with.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I seen a TikTok the other day, and I don't remember the premise of it, but it had something to do with an old man. This guy was old. Not the oldest man in the world. He was 104, 105 years old. And all the comments sign this guy up for Congress. He's the perfect age. Get him in.
Yeah. You probably got around too good.
Yeah, exactly.
We got to have somebody who got to wheel down in a chair.
Yeah, somebody locks up and can't remember their name and smears shit on their face.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know. It's every generation's got its own challenges, I suppose.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I don't know. I think you just got to keep the faith and keep pushing on and not worry about so much of that stuff,
Yeah.
Farming is what it is. It's not great right now, and there's a lot of things in the world that are, questionable, so on and so forth. Turn your give a shit meter down.
Yeah.
It didn't matter that much in the big picture anyway.
Nope. Not a bit.
Worry about the afterlife and say, you know what? I'm not going to get too worked up about this.
Can you tell me right now who the biggest farmer in this community was 35 years ago?
Maybe.
But that's exactly my point.
Yeah. Yeah.
It don't matter.
It don't matter. It don't matter.
Not a bit.
No. No. They probably farm the same now as they did then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they never made an issue out of it. They just happened to get a lot of stuff during the Depression, if we're talking about the same person. But that's all coming to a helm at some point too. Like, no, at the end of the day, Bill Gates, super wealthy, going to give all his money away in the next 20 years, which I don't know why that's big news today, because he's been saying that for a while.
Yeah.
Why don't
I
we
mean,
start with
and
the
he's got to be
200,000 acres he owns?
Would he be 70 now? I mean, I don't know how old he is. I mean, would he be close? No.
He'd have to be getting close.
Okay,
Yeah.
so by the time you're 90, you're going to have gave it away. Whoa,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, big whoop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure he's keeping back a couple $1 billion for his kids.
Yeah. And what he gives away will go to universities and
It'll be dumb
shit.
shit. Yeah. Liberal causes and, pedophile stuff. Yeah. Because that's what he's into.
But I wonder, for our kids' sake, how tight does this stuff get wound up, though? Whether it's farming, trucking, pick your industry. It just keeps consolidating more and more and more and more.
Well, I think that continues to happen until it crashes.
Do you think there could be?
Starts over. Well, I mean, traditionally that's the way it goes, right?
Right.
Things keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger till they crash. The Roman Empire at one point in time was 2/3 of the earth, and then crashes, and now they got basically damn near nothing.
Yeah.
So it grows. I mean, America's gotten bigger, not necessarily geographical, not in our lifetime, but our hold on the world, et cetera. And eventually it'll come crashing down at some point, probably, especially the longer we leave liberals in charge of shit. But that's kind of the nature of the beast, right? I mean, eventually you run into the next generation that doesn't care to run whatever it is, whether it's a trucking company or whatever. Like, your biggest companies in the world either get bought out and become public and get turned into some sort of deal. I mean, yellow freight was huge around here. When we were little kids. When my dad worked for Yellow Freight. They're not around anymore.
Nope.
Gone. The only time you see them now is every trailer they had got sold off to somebody for $2,000, and it's a storage unit now.
Yep.
Like.
And even up till 10 years ago, shit, with us being, kind of a hub here with 5770 split, shit, every 10th truck you met on the interstate was a yellow freight truck.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gone. And
so all that shit comes back around. It's hard to keep that stuff going for multiple generations. Eventually you end up with somebody that's a dipshit. I mean, International Harvester sold everything.
Yeah, they were the Amazon of the day.
And Sears, one point in time, like, when Sam Walton was starting a little shitbox store in Bentonville, Arkansas, he was nothing to Sears, and Sears is gone, and Walmart's still going.
Yep. And actually, I think Walmart's hit their peak. I think online's killing them.
They're going back the other way. They didn't jump on board on some of that stuff soon enough, and they're trying to scrap it together now, and they'll be fine.
Yeah, I don't think they're going away
for a while. They're not going away for a while, but it wasn't that long ago, Amazon sold books, and that was it.
Yeah, that's right.
And then now they're big. That won't last that much longer. That'll eBay was big before Amazon was, and eBay kind of plateaued, and it's still a thing, but Amazon will go away eventually.
Sure,
somebody will overtake them with
Craigslist was huge until Facebook Marketplace came along,
and then it turned into basically a dating site, kind of, sort of.
Dating and scams is pretty much
exactly.
You want to either go there.
Yeah, exactly. So all that stuff comes full circle. I mean, it's hard to keep anything going for multiple generations.
Yeah, it seems like now, like when you come to the online stuff, it seems like now it sticks a little bit longer. So. And I never had any of this stuff, whether it was MySpace or, what were some of the first social media apps? Like, I never had MySpace.
I never had MySpace. That was one of the first ones.
But, now, you got Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, that stuff's all stuck around. But, eventually that shit will get knocked off by something. Who knows what that'll be and who knows when it'll be.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, eventually it'll get bigger. And,
if we're going with America first, then I'll be the first one to tell you. If I click on something that I'm going to buy and it's going to ship out of California, I mean, nope. If it's going to be out of China, nope.
Yeah.
Now, once in a while they'll fool you and they've got a roundabout way to it, and it turns out it came from there anyway, so on and so forth. But I'm like, California people aren't bad. As a state, they ran worse than Illinois, which is saying something. But I try to avoid some of that. Like I said, there's ways they hide different things on that, and it may come from there or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, it's a long way to ship it. So literally anywhere else in the U.S. outside of Alaska and Hawaii is faster to me than anything from California. So some of it's just based on that. Some of it's the fact that I don't want to support their liberal agenda. At some point in time, I'll buy shit from Indiana and Missouri before I buy it in Illinois, just because, well, I know Illinois has got some stupid tax.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I don't want to support Uncle JB and that stupidity. So I'll buy it somewhere else on there. But
it's kind of like Trump told Canada yesterday or day before.
We don't want your cars.
Yeah. There's really no other way to put it.
We don't really need them. Like, why would we buy cars built in Canada?
And he's not wrong.
No, there's no reason to buy cars from Canada.
I mean, at one time, Detroit was the capital of the world on automobiles. I mean, is there anything made in Detroit anymore?
I assume there's something because all the corporate headquarters are still there, but can you fathom trying to recruit the best execs in the world and want them to move to Detroit?
Yeah.
Have you been to Detroit?
Yeah, it's a shithole.
Yeah, it's not nice. Yeah. So I don't know. You know, of course, I'm a little bit jaded on certain things. Like there's certain places of the U.S. that I dearly love, so I try to get things out of there if I can. Like I got a lot of good friends in Ohio. Had a lot of good times in Ohio. If something's going to ship from Ohio, send it. Missouri, Indiana, I try to do it in the Midwest if I can, even though Eastern Ohio is a stretch as the Midwest, but I don't know if it's coming from New Jersey. I'm a little lukewarm, you know. I'm not dying to do that. Nothing against people from New Jersey. I literally know nobody from New Jersey, but I know it's a long ways from here, and it's probably liberal, and try to avoid it. But yeah, it's as long as it's made in the United States. That's my first preference. Which I don't know why there's not a bigger push for better labeling and better. If you could go to eBay or Amazon, there was only products made in the USA. You can't filter it by that, but that's the filter I want. I want it made in the USA. Made in the USA, distributed in the USA, sold by a USA person. I will gladly pay more.
Why do you think so many people are against that? Like as far as, you know, they're like all up in arms over this China deal.
Well, I think it got.
Is it because it's a right now world?
It's that. The China stuff's cheap. But how much of that shit do you buy that's just absolute garbage? That you know it's one-time use, even though I had to fix a patio umbrella stand for my mom this morning. Just made like shit. I know damn good and well it come from China originally. Mm-hmm. Just garbage shit. For one, the bolt was metric, so I know it was a pile of shit from the get-go. It was metric bolt. Metric sucks. Metric's 0-2 in world wars. It sucks. Yep. Metric is a useless fastener. They can wad all that shit up, shove it in the river. I don't need anything. I don't need anything metric. It's not worth a piss. And you Europeans and all you got, Uppy's going to be all wound up about this. Metric hardware sucks ass. You can make your Celsius argument. You can make your kilometers argument. You can make your divisible by 10 argument. That's all neat and cool. Metric thread sucks ass. Nobody's ever said, you know what would make this bolt better? If I used a useless thread that came loose and stripped out. Nobody's ever said that. Metric hardware sucks. Nobody's ever said, this 15/16 works too good. If I could get some sort of metric shitbox wrench that's numbered real simply, so literally anybody can just grab a wrench, but they won't know what the right one is. That's what we need. No, because metric sucks. But I think we've got so woke in the fact that we don't want to advertise that, and it's become taboo to be made in the USA. Bullshit. I want every product. I want to filter it by that. That's all I want.
Yep.
Let me make the choice.
So like your grandparents and my grandparents, and I'm going to have to throw out the tail end of their lives. Like say your grandpa, grandma lived on the farm until they were 65 and then moved to town.
Yep.
That could be the exception. Prior to that, how many refrigerators do you think they bought in their life? I'm going to guess probably one about the time they got married. And the fucker lasted.
I'd say you're probably right.
40, 50 years.
If my grandpa owned 3 refrigerators, that would be hard pressed. And that's only because once they moved to town, he put one in the garage.
I'm 45 and we're on our at least third or fourth.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
At least.
Absolutely.
But they, back then, whether it's an International Harvester, I don't know whether their brand's probably a GE. I don't know what they had back then.
Yeah.
Took 6 men to get it in your kitchen.
Yeah, but it was there.
But it was there and it was going to run, and most of that shit will still run today.
Sold at the house. Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's why I don't want it.
And that's what always cracks me up. But we got Yeti coolers and all this stuff now. What do they have? Really thick walls with some gap in there. Those old International freezers and refrigerators were huge. Not a ton of space inside of them because the walls are super thick. We're going back to the same shit, only with a shitty knockoff Chinese compressor that's not good. Like, I don't want anything that supports communism.
That's how I am.
You tell me that Tricoms made it, I don't need it. There is nothing good about communism. It's a shit-ass proposal. It's always sucked. It's always going to suck. I don't want anything that comes from there.
Agreed.
I want to filter it down by that. I don't want any of it. I'll gladly pay more for shit made by North American people that are doing what we need to do, made right here in the good old USA.
Yep.
I don't need anything that comes from China.
I think China's bleeding a little worse than they're letting on
absolutely
right now, too. I think
they're hiding it really well because they control their own media. But
yeah.
The thing of it is, Tony, our generation, we're on the backside of this woke bullshit. I'll pay $12 a dozen for eggs.
Same.
Which it cracks me up that eggs is the breaking point for everybody. Gas can be $19 a gallon.
Bottled water can be $45 a fucking.
You go to a concert, it's $50 a freaking pint for the USA measuring people. But eggs, that's what's breaking them. And the average person's eating what? 3 eggs a week?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Literally throwing most of the dozen out and buying new.
Not me. I'm eating 6 a day because that's who I am.
Right.
But yeah, it does crack me up on that. I will gladly overpay for eggs. Well, I won't have to because I have chickens, but I don't care. As long as it breaks the Tricoms, as long as it takes China down.
Agreed.
I will pay whatever it takes. I will work 3 jobs if that's what it takes to break communism. Yep. Communism is a shit-ass proposal. We were raised to hate the Russians for communism. At this point in time, I don't mind the Russians as much as I hate the Chinese. Piss on them. Yep. Don't care. When they go down in flames, that's a great day for me.
Yeah.
I would love to watch China.
I hate to tell most people, listen, China's not your friend. Everybody wants to, they're big trading partners and they buy our this.
Communists are not humans.
No.
So they can burn in hell, far as I'm concerned. Communism is a failed policy. That is a shitbox deal. And you can thank Democrats for trying to being communist now. That's a whole.
Well, you almost said Democrats, which is the same thing.
Same thing. Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah. Don't care.
And I'm not saying this because I'm a farmer. I'm truly not. I don't care if this would have happened with trucking or logging or whatever. In Trump's first term, he done the right thing as far as this is what we're going to do with China. And if it hurts the farmers, we'll subsidize them.
Yeah.
I don't want subsidies. I don't want no part of that. But I understand why he did it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the end game that we're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's, we're going to get this trade war and China's going to buy our stuff. China is doing everything they can every day to buy less and less and less from us on the soybean side.
Yep.
They are spending billions of dollars in South America to not have to buy anything from us. So the sooner we cut them off, I don't care if their entire population starves tomorrow. Yeah. Don't care. As long as they're communists, I don't care if they starve to death. And maybe that's bad for me from a Christian standpoint, but I literally don't care. Communists are not Christians. I don't care.
Right.
Less of them there are, the better off the world is.
To me, wouldn't you also be looking at India, some of that Southeast Asia shit as far as your next target market? Because China had the one-child policy forever.
How's that working out for them now?
Now their population is going backwards. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying China's going to collapse. I'm not saying that at all. But
we can hope.
They took that too far, and they realized they're like, holy fuck.
Yeah. Now we
have no replacements.
Now we have no replacements and a bunch of boys and a bunch of queers because we have nothing else left.
So what does that look like 40 years from now?
Hopefully the end of communism.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be all bad. But Southeast Asia's all signed up with us and said, you know what? Go with your tariffs. We'll build your shit cheaper and better than China's doing it. To hell with them. We don't like them either.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody likes China. There's not a country in the world that thinks China is their friend, deep down.
No. And why the fuck we ever went to South America and started showing people how to farm is fucking
That is the
beyond
dumbest
me.
thing, yeah.
And I get so sick of your fucking farm bureaus and your fucking Illinois corn growers and your fucking soybean boards and all your stupid fucking people that rake all your money off the fucking table and fuck you in the ass. Well, they're just creating better markets. You know, if we look at all this, you know, we can have all these soybeans in this new markets. No, it's not. Fuck that. I want to be the only game in town. You want soybeans, you're coming to me.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the only thing I want.
Think what the price of soybeans and corn would be right now if South America didn't grow any.
I have no use for any of them fucking boards. None of them.
Yeah, piss on their checkoffs.
Yeah, it's a fucking joke.
Yes, absolutely. Because all that gets tied up in middle management and goes to all these big salaries and never actually gets anywhere or does anything. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm done with those two.
Yep, it's absolute bullshit. Yep. Yeah, China's, fuck them guys.
Yeah, no use for them.
I'd just soon never do business with them again, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
They're not, or I mean, they're self-sufficient in corn. They damn sure aren't in soybeans.
No.
And
no.
Don't really care.
No. But we're going to pass all these emission laws over here. Meanwhile, they're just polluting the shit out of it.
Yeah.
Because they don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yes, it is.
This country has sold us down the fucking river.
Absolutely.
So bad.
The more I learn, the madder I get.
I am so sick of the Republican Democrat fucking argument that I don't know.
Yeah, it's off the rails, that's for sure.
I don't know how you fix it, but maybe someday something will change. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we're probably alive long enough for that.
No, I don't think we will. Kids may, but
yeah,
I don't think we will.
Well, I think you just got to look towards the Lord and not worry about the rest.
Yeah,
work out how it works out.
I agree. Yeah.
It's just a short time in the long-term game.
Yeah, it is. Yep. I don't know. Well, gosh, we've took this one.
Yeah, we come around
quite a while, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
We have covered some farming stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, we're not.
It started off innocently enough.
It did.
Yeah. Yep. So what you gather from this is go ahead and let your kids have some fun, and communism sucks.
Yeah, exactly. And I think here, looking at the calendar, we're still way ahead of the Unfiltered Farm.
Yeah, we're knocking it out of the park against them, so which is our really only competition.
Yeah, which they'll never hear this anyway.
No, they won't know. Yeah.
Well, tomorrow night we got a big fundraiser to go to. Drink even more beer.
Yeah.
And Saturday night, I'm sure we'll drink even more beer. So
yeah, that's
sounds like a beer-filled weekend.
Yeah, it does. It's raining, and we have no choice. America first.
Exactly. What'd you think of your bush apple tonight? Little queasy, right?
Wasn't as good as I remember it being. Yeah, it wasn't as good as I remember it being. I had to switch back to regular bush.
Yep. Just think of how many of them, though, you've drank since your last bush apple, so I think you just...
It's probably an acquired taste, honey.
Yeah, I think so. All right. We got to let these guys go.
Long live the Republic.
Exactly. See you guys.